GolfSuites Incorporated. Thanks for joining us here. What is GolfSuites? Let's just start with that. We are a golf entertainment venue. I would presume, I don't know how many people are on this call, but I am sure that there are people on this call who have heard of Topgolf. Topgolf, a very successful company, now owned by the Callaway Golf Company, pretty much invented this venue of food and beverage, sports bar environment, married to a pretty high-tech golf driving range. They've got 60, 70 locations now. They're extremely heavily capitalized. We can be considered a Topgolf clone. We have 3 locations now. We have land ready now for our 4th and 5th, and we are scaling this company up to be developing between 5 and 10 of these a year. Smaller than what you see at a Topgolf. For those of you familiar, these are going to be $5, $6, $7 million facilities. Our management team has tremendous background in multiple construction projects across several states concurrently. So we're very well geared for aggressive yet very responsible growth. We have a very artistic website. Our investment link takes you to the offering circular where you get some good pictorials of what we all look like here in our 3 existing locations. If you invest in GolfSuites, you are investing in an operating, ongoing company. It transitioned from concept to operations pretty much as we moved into the 2020. We're coming up now 3 years of operations. And so you are not going into necessarily just a venture capital concept. You're going into a company that is operating and operating quite profitably. So let's move on to the first slide there, Ramas.
Give me 1 second, sir. There we go.
Okay, broadly, what are we doing here? Number one, because of Topgolf, we have to give them credit, and every industry has this. Decades ago, a company called Public Storage proved the concept of mini storage. No one really even knew what mini storage was in the early 70s. Everybody knows what it is now, and Public Storage out of Burbank, California takes credit for that. Topgolf takes credit for this. They proved the concept, and that has spawned 3 or 4 companies like us. We've got GolfSuites, you've got other companies. We are the only company where you can buy share ownership in purely a golf entertainment company. It is not available anywhere else. We pay an 8% dividend based on your investment, irrespective of your share price. If you invest $10,000, you get $800 a year, $200 a quarter. We have paid this now for just over 3 years. Well, 3.5 years we've paid this dividend, and it is well backed by the cash flows that the facilities make. You see tax deferred there. It's tax deferred because when a C corporation, which is what this is, does not pay tax to the federal government, the dividends that shareholders receive are thereby not taxable. And we don't pay taxes because of very favorable depreciation offsets, soft costs that come in and quite nicely offset our positive cash flows. So for several years to come, we predict that these dividends will be non-taxable. We offer primarily Regulation A. It is preferred stock. Let's talk about preferred stock. And I always tell everybody on the webinar, we never have enough time to really get into this stuff. You should go to Google and look up preferred stock. Get the official definition. Preferred stock basically means first money out. And what you are buying here is you're buying shares of preferred stock. We sell out next year, 3 years from now. First thing that happens, you get all of your money back. Step 1. Step 2 is the preferred stock is convertible to common, which means that if your percentage of ownership allocates a greater share than your investment to you, you would then convert to common and collect that. So I know I'm glossing over this very fast, but you really need to look up preferred stock. And then while you're at it, look up convertible preferred. In our various materials, you'll see all of our phone numbers and email addresses. And you can, as Ramez knows, I talk to people all the time. So to make sure that that is clear. You're not just buying common stock and hoping it goes up in value. You're buying a priority lien preferred stock position that has priority over all of the stock that I own and other members of the company. So go ahead, Ramos, on the next one.
Jerry, if you don't mind, I want to go over this because this is a topic that comes up quite often from IRA club members that don't understand as investors the differences between, let's say, a Reg A or a Reg D, and
that's right.
How hard is it? Like people do not understand, investors do not understand how hard it is to get a filing from the SEC for a Reg A.
Yeah, it's believe me, I've got whiplashes all over my back from this. I've done a lot of SEC work in my life. I've general partnered probably more than 100 limited partnerships. Regulation A is an interesting thing. To colloquialize it, Regulation A, as promulgated by the Jobs Act 2012, another thing that investors could look at, JOBS, Jobs Act 2012, lays out this mass expansion of Regulation A, which is in fact an old law, but never really used too much. And it's meant to protect non-accredited investors, let them go into private asset ownership but on a public scale. And the investor is pretty much protected by this massive filing requirement that we have to go through and get the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, to qualify our offering. I happen to be chairman of 2 companies doing Reg A's, and I am now in my 4th and 5th Reg A. GolfSuites is now operating its 3rd Reg A offering. ERC Communities, its 2nd. We've become pretty well known at the Reg A desk of the SEC. We have a prominent law firm who represents us, and we get our qualifications now quite fast. But it's a very laborious thing. It's audited financials, it's semi-annual reporting, all kinds of massive disclosures meant to protect the investors who want to buy shares in it. It does allow non-accredited investors. The SEC essentially expanded Reg A. It was Congress expanded Reg A to allow non-accredited investors an opportunity to invest in things that they otherwise were not able to do because those investments, as you know, Ramos, were sidelined for favorite investors, super wealthy people. You hear about this all the time, people coming in and getting first dibs on new public offerings and things like that. So it's a very interesting piece of law, a little intimidating at the outset. I have to admit, it was a little intimidating, but we got through the process and we really like it now. The Reg A, and interestingly enough, you talk about non-accredited, Ramos, as you know, we have a tremendous volume of accredited investors coming into these Reg A offerings at very high dollar amounts. So we have.
Well, to your point, Jerry, again, this webinar is not just for the accredited, but also for the non-accredited, right?
Absolutely.
So it's for both. And this is something that I promised IRA club members is like, listen, let's talk about in the month of December, all different types of non-accredited investments. Right. Or if you just want to get involved for as little as $5,000 because your dividends or rental income, or you sold a property, whatever the case may be, Jerry, it just upsets me that self-direction as a whole is only taught, you just said, to the ultra wealthy or the accredited investor.
Right. No,
and I hate that. I hate that with a passion. I think that everybody needs to understand that this is an opportunity for everybody.
Yeah, and the Reg A process through this laborious SEC qualification process kind of legitimizes the investment. It doesn't mean that it's an investment the investor is necessarily going to like or not like, but it goes through a tremendous background search, all kinds of things you have to do before the SEC to qualify to offer these shares to, American citizens. So Reg A is, we happen to be getting a lot of accreds, obviously get a lot of non-accrediteds. Our minimum investment in this offering is $650. We get a lot of those. We get 2,000, 5,000. I think IRAs tend to have a little higher minimum. And then it's
3,000 actually. And the only reason why that we have it at 3,000 is just understand, because the fee structure, if it's $135, I want it to be worth your while. So if you're not going to get involved for at least $3,000, then honestly, I would take a pass. Otherwise, the IRA club fees will eat away. But I should mention something, and actually this shouldn't come out of my mouth because Jerry is the one that's supposed to say this, and maybe he could offer this at the end of this webinar, so that doesn't come out of my mouth.
Yeah, well, no, we pay those fees.
I know that. I'm not supposed to say it. You're supposed to say it.
And are delighted to do it. So I see those charges come through quite often now. So it's actually one of the nicest expenses I see, right?
Just keep that in mind if you guys are interested. reach out to Jerry and his team, and then you guys could discuss the details on that. But
Yeah,
he does. Jerry is nice enough to cover the $135 asset fee. So
in these two companies of ours, which are very cohesively managed, I do some videos, and in one of the videos, I actually start laughing. I say, our investor services department, probably a lot like IRA Club. We get the same impression of IRA Club. It's kind of like an old-fashioned corner grocery store. I mean, Ramez, these people, it's like a big family. And we get that impression with Lisa and some of the other people at IRA Club, and you and Dennis. It's just very, very family, very old-fashioned, kind of like the old TV show Cheers. And we have a lot of investors who know each other, and they have tremendous referral. We have investors coming in 6th, 7th, 8th time, kind of flabbergasted at this level of support. We have more than half of our shareholders now want to reinvest their dividends. They just want to. So there's just, we're just feel very blessed. It's just worked very well. And we're just obviously at our formative stage. But anyway, that's, you want to look up preferred stock, you want to look up convertible preferred stock, and you want to look up the Jobs Act 2012. Gives you a real good explanation of why we've chosen this path. And this path, by the way, as you know, Ramos, is growing. I mean, Reg A is just exploding.
And if you don't mind, just a real high level understanding of a Regulation D, the 506C, so people understand.
Well, the Regulation D 506C, of course, is for accredited. And of course, because it's for accredited people who certify themselves as accredited, it doesn't have to be filed with the SEC. So it's a much different format. The proof of accreditation is a little involved. You have to basically prove to the issuer that you are accredited, and but very much a similar presentation. Presentation is pretty much the same. The only difference is it doesn't have to be filed with the SEC. The filing with the SEC to get qualification is really meant to protect the non-accredited investor. That's
a question. A question just popped up, Jerry. So why two? If you have a Reg A for both, we have something inside the chat that just came through. Why do you have two? Why do you have a Reg?
The 506C. What basically we are doing, Ramez, I mean, we haven't talked about this too much. We're basically succeeding at convincing 506C applicants to just do the Reg A instead. They find it easier. They don't have to disclose so much data, and it's the same exact security. That's why you heard me say we have so many accrediteds in the Reg A. It's just a very simple procedure. If you do a 506C, I mean, you're talking about you're running copies of your bank statements, your copies of your securities, credit checks, all these kind of things, and that is meant to make sure that the investor doesn't need the SEC protection of Reg A. So we, our guys, Vince and Dominic, that crew. I mean, when they're talking with these people, they just say, hey, that's a much better idea. Let's just do the Reg A. It's the same investment anyway. It's the same thing.
One of the reasons why I actually love your team is they are now unbelievable. I remember when we first started a little over a year ago, they did not understand this concept, and they took the time to learn it. I've held numerous of educational webinars to show them the differences between personal funds, traditional and Roth funds. They know how to really, really talk about it now. And I'm super impressed with them. So good job to your team on that.
Yeah. This page here is actually who I'm with right now in Nashville. I was fortunate enough to meet Nick Flanagan, who was the chief operating officer of the restaurant chain Cracker Barrel, based here in Nashville. He was in an extremely successful position there, had reached a certain financial position in life that he wanted to take more of an ownership risk, and joined us. And he's sitting about 20 yards from me right now out in the conference room. I'm sitting at his desk here, and he put together a phenomenal team. It shows 3 people here. There's actually 5, and but he is the president, COO. He has tremendous authority, very major ownership in the company. Nick basically decides where we go, and he decides what we're going to build. And he, in his career at Cracker Barrel, he was overseeing 20 restaurant constructions at a time, plus all the operations. So he's amazingly overqualified for this position right now, which is what an investor wants. That's the most important thing you want at this stage of business. You want overqualified executives.
Jerry, how many Cracker Barrels are? I'm like, if that's a Chicago-based chain. I see them all over the Indiana Midwest region.
Well, no, it's based here in Nashville, but it's he took it from 400 to 650, and he sat on top of 77,000 employees, 700 people just at the home office, 650 locations at about $4 billion a year. He grew it from 2.5 billion to 4. He was the
Wow.
number 2 guy there. And an intense career, 15 years of 80 hours a week, never seeing his family on holidays. I mean, it's kind of like a Wall Street career. It's very intense, and did very well in it. And he's having a blast right now, running this from scratch. And I guess with major ownership has tremendous incentive here. Scott McCurry came over from Topgolf. Scott opened 25, I think, of the Topgolf locations. And then everybody else, Ann England, along with Michael Zilstra, corporate counsel, are all Cracker Barrel. So again, if you analyze what this is a business that is 2/3 food and beverage revenue, 1/3 actual golf fees to hit the balls. What is it? It's golf. Hello, Scott McCurry from Topgolf. It's food and beverage. Hello, Nick and the others from Cracker Barrel. And so it's a phenomenal mix. This management team is phenomenally overqualified. We could hand them 40 locations now, and they wouldn't even have to change their work habits. So we just, nobody can match this, and we're just very proud of that. So it's a great team.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead. To the
Oh, I'm sorry. I was sharing if you talk about Ann. Go ahead.
Why GolfSuites now? Well, I have a tendency to get ahead of these screens a little bit. I already said to you, we are a profitable operating facility. Right now, we're probably doing about 12 million a year in revenue. 18 months from now, that should be doubled. And then it should probably, material 50 to 100% growth every 18 months after that. You're not investing in a concept here. You're investing in an operating facility. You're actually looking at the middle floor, the second floor of the Tulsa facility. Ramez, you've been there. That's our facility in Tulsa.
Beautiful.
Repeat investors, I already hit on this. The repeat investor thing here, Ramez, I'm speechless, which is rare for me to be speechless. It's just a phenomenal. I just heard today someone came in, and I know the name, Miss Dr. Hill from Jackson, Mississippi, and she came with her 6th investment. And it's just, they're just happy people, and so you would be joining a family of very happy investors. So go ahead to the next slide, because I know we're conscious of time here. If someone were to, if you were to be asked a quiz question, if someone were to say, Jerry, you only have one answer you can give as to why we would do this. We understand the dividend, we understand the preferred stock, but let's talk about the business. What is it? Better features, better real estate, better prices on land, more efficient construction, all these kind of things, better technology. I would say this. This is just low supply, high demand. Now, my operating people here a few feet away hate when I talk this way, because they live in a world of competitive advantages, and how much things are so much better at GolfSuites than our competitors, which they are. But the bottom line is this. This country needs 300 or 400 or more of these facilities across all 50 states, from Seattle, Washington to Miami, from Portland, Maine down to San Diego. I mean, it's a big, broad country. We're doing smaller facilities on purpose because they're faster to build, spreading out investor risk. It's just an acute supply demand shortfall. That's why when you go to GolfSuites, as with Topgolf, as with Drive Shack, some of our other competitors, you go there on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you're in a 1 or 2 hour wait. It's just not enough of this around. So what you're doing economically now, we talk about dividends and preferred stock, we're talking financial. We move over to economic. What you're doing economically is you're coming into a business that just has an acute low supply, and Topgolf just can't do it all. They can't do it all. They're definitely the Hertz Rent-A-Car, and we're the Avis. We're number 2. We try harder. Happy to be there, but it is a supply demand out of balance that I don't really see it anywhere else. If you were to invest in a new restaurant chain, if you were to invest in a new automobile dealership chain, all of those kind of things, you wouldn't see this acute supply demand shortage. But that really is the key economic reason you'd want to do this. That screen is probably the most important screen of the whole webinar here, in my opinion. Go ahead. We already talked about this. Equity upside. Again, I talked about this a few minutes ago. Dividends are all paid in cash. They are all current. In fact, the last dividend just went out. The third quarter dividend went out just a couple of weeks ago. And that equity upside. Now, the equity upside under Regulation A, I got to be very careful. I'm not allowed to predict, but it is a very interesting scenario where you collect these dividends. They won't be taxable for quite some time. And your trade-off is that when we go to sell, we merge, we IPO, whatever it is we do to monetize the ownership, you will get the greater of the investment you made or your conversion to common stock. Very well covered in the offering circular, but a little too intense to discuss on this webinar. If anybody wants to talk about common share conversion, Ramez, they really need to call me or one of the other people. And frankly, that's me. The common share conversion really should be me. That should be a conversation. I will end with that. Ramez, always a pleasure doing this with you. You're great to party with on these webinars. It's just a blast.
Thank you, bud.
Take care, guys.
The information contained herein is intended to help the viewer successfully navigate common IRS and Department of Labor requirements to help achieve successful results from their IRA. The information is not intended to replace information from your legal counsel or income tax professional. IRA Club does not offer or sell any investment. All investments have risk.